Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough, and here is a mini dose of Dr. Debbie where I'm sharing tips, suggestions, strategies, and sometimes just motivation to have you move past your betrayal once and for all. Hi there. I recorded an episode recently about stage 2. I'm always talking about the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. I specifically went into stage 2, what it feels like, the personas of people who are experiencing stage 2, what they would be saying, what they would be feeling, what they would be experiencing. So I thought I would continue and give you another episode, but this time stage 3, what it would look like, what it would feel like, what it would sound like. So this way, if you're unsure which stage you're in, you will totally know by the time I'm through specifically with this episode. Now, out of the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough, stage 3, by far, hands down, is the most common place we get stuck. Now, if you've heard me talk about stage 3 before, it's worth hearing again. This is the one we get stuck in because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma where we just came from. So we think it's good. And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4 or stage 5. Remember, transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. But because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we plant roots here, we park here, and 4 things begin to happen. The first thing is we start getting all of these small self benefits. We get to be right. We get someone to blame. We get a target for our anger. We get sympathy from everyone we tell our story to. We don't have to do the hard work of learning to trust again. Can I trust you? Should I trust you? Forget it. I'm not trusting anybody. And on some level, this feels safe. So we stay here. Now, because we're here again longer than we should be, the mind starts doing things like, well, maybe you deserved it. Maybe it was your fault. Maybe this, maybe that. And you start believing all of this nonsense that you may have heard that, or you're just picking up on your own. So now again, you're here longer than you should be. Now your mind starts, creating these thoughts of it's your fault. Maybe it's you should be younger, prettier, better, thinner, wealthier, whatever, more anything. And so you plant deeper roots. And now, because these are the thoughts you're thinking, well, this is the energy you start to put out. Like energy attracts like energy. So now you start calling situations and circumstances and even relationships towards you to confirm, yep, this is where I belong. Here is where you join that lame support group and you will actually sabotage your healing because you're afraid to outgrow your people. Here's where you may be healing, but your betrayer isn't changing and has no intention of changing, but because you're afraid to outgrow your betrayer, you will sabotage yourself so that you don't outgrow your betrayer. You're starting to feel a little bit better as you do these things to help you heal, but there's so much fear in the what ifs. What if I, will I be alone? Will I have no support around me? Will I lose my people, lose my group? So we sabotage ourselves. It is so common to do that in this stage. Now, it's going to get worse, but I'm going to get you out of here. Because you're here again longer than you should be. Remember, this is the victim space. You're getting the sympathy from everybody else. You're not trusting again. You found maybe your support group that you just rehash and go over things over and over and over again. Here's also a very common place where people get stuck in therapy. Now, there is a wonderful, amazing place for therapy, but if all you're doing is rehashing your story and going over it, and you're feeling heard and validated and understood, but you are no closer to stage 4 than the last however many times you went, you may want to reconsider it. And here's where people get stuck, because the more you do that, the more you solidify your space in stage 3. If I tell you how many people come into the PBT Institute with therapy trauma, the most well-meaning therapists, but if all you're doing is feeling heard, validated, understood, and you're not doing anything to move you closer to the next stage, it is a recipe for staying stuck. But here, this is the part that really keeps you stuck in stage 3. Because you're so uncomfortable here, because you don't know there's anywhere else to go, you want to get through, you need to get through your day. You may have your kids to raise, you have your work to go, go to. You can't afford just be ruminating all day long. So here's where we start numbing, avoiding, distracting. So right here, we start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, keeping busy, reckless behavior, anything to numb, avoid, and distract ourselves from this painful place. So think about it. You do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. And I can see someone 20 years later and say, that emotional eating you're doing, that numbing you're doing, that, that drinking, whatever it is, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they'd look at me like I'm crazy. They'd say it happened 20 years ago. All they did was put themselves in stage 3 and stay there. I hope that makes sense. I wrote From Hardened to Healed because, when I wrote Trust Again, that had the 5 stages in it, but I was like, wow, everyone is getting stuck in stage 3. So if you find you want to know more about the stages, that's where Trust Again comes in, super handy. But if you find you're stuck in stage 3, if what I said sounds familiar, From Hardened to Healed. But I wanted to give you, also, and before I even give you these personas, here's where we started having the symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome in stage 2, when we ignite the stress response, where it's like we're running for our lives. So the stress response is ignited. We are headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. And what happens is you're not supposed to be living in this place of constant and chronic unmanaged stress. It's designed beautifully for short term, but it's not meant to be for long term. When the stress response is ignited over a long period of time, here's where you start getting all of these symptoms. Here's where you start getting the symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. They continue into stage 3. Now, what you wind up doing in stage 3 is you start medicating and suppressing all of these symptoms that are showing up. Now, they're staying here because you're staying in stage 3. The symptoms heal as you move into stages 4 and 5. But as you stay in stage 3, it can be this endless game of whack-a-mole. You know that game whack-a-mole? It's like at a carnival, you hit is it a gopher with a hammer, the fake gopher? And then another one pops up somewhere else and pops up somewhere else and pops up somewhere else. And that's what you're doing. You're medicating and suppressing those symptoms, but the symptoms are all there because they showed up in stage 2. They continue in stage 3, and that's what's keeping you busy. So between the victim stance, where, and listen, you're doing the best you can. You don't know there's a stage 4 and 5. Now you do. So there's no excuse. So when you're getting sympathy, you're unwilling to trust, you're keeping yourself back, you're hyper vigilant, you're doing all these things. Now the mind is having you convinced that maybe it's you. Now you're in this group, let's say, of like-minded people where you're just complaining, oh, you think that's bad, this happened to me, oh, you think that's bad. And these are the people you're surrounding yourself with. Now you have relationships to confirm it, because you may be so brokenhearted, so lonely, that if you're in stage 3, you can only meet and be with a stage 3 person romantically in a relationship. So that's what you're going to attract. So you wonder why repeat betrayals happen. They all happen again in stage 3. Or let's say you reconcile with your partner who betrayed you, but if you do that while you're in stage 3, here's again why repeat betrayals happen. And people say, what the heck? I've been with this person, and over the course of this relationship, I've been betrayed multiple times. Well, of course, because you keep rebuilding when you're in stage 3. It's a totally different thing. When that betrayal led to a crash and burn of the old, you rebuild something entirely new. You meet up again as 2 completely different people. That's a stage 5 relationship, and that's a whole different thing. But when you're just in so much pain, and then maybe you go to, let's say, couples counseling, who's just the goal is just to get you both together without any true transformation on either of your parts, here's where repeat betrayals happen. Now you're so unhappy and you're so miserable, and you start numbing, avoiding, distracting, keeping you stuck, keeping you with those symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome that you're medicating and suppressing. Now, I'm certainly not saying this to depress you. I want you to know what's happening. And I want you to know how predictable healing is when you move to the next stage. So that's stage 3. And if you're not specifically in stage 3, you know people who are. And this is where most people stay. And I always look at it thinking, the worst of it happened already. You owe it to yourself to move to stages 4 and stage 5, where transformation begins. But I promised you I was going to give you different scenarios. And I want you to know what stage 3 would feel like, look like, sound like. Okay. So in these different personas, ready? Meet Alex. Every morning, Alex wakes up with a weight on his chest, the remnants of betrayal lingering like a shadow that refuses to lift. Despite the passage of time, he feels anchored to the moment of discovery, unable to move forward. His thoughts are a loop of unanswered questions and what ifs, creating a mire of indecision that hinders progress. Alex knows he should seek closure, but the fear of confronting those raw emotions keeps him so stuck, trapped in a purgatory of his own making. Now, this is so common. Here's the thing. When we think time will heal it, a new relationship will heal it, no, they won't. Healing will heal it only when you deliberately and intentionally heal it. This loop, the constant loop of unanswered questions, we get stuck in that loop. That is typical of stage 3. As far as closure, where he, wants to seek closure, here's the thing. There's I have so many sayings, but one is this, and I hope this helps. What is this saying? It just left me. Oh, closure is karma is the universe's job. Closure is your job. Karma is the universe's job. It's something like that. I've said it a million times. I guess now that I'm on this, I put myself on the spot, but the idea is closure is up to you. Justice is karma's. That's what it is. Okay. And the idea of fearing, confronting those raw emotions, that's what keeps them there. And that's where you've heard me say this so many times, when we're afraid there's a saying that we say within the PBT Institute: face it, feel it, heal it. That's the only way you move through it. When you're afraid or trying to outrun those raw emotions, they stay with you. And hard now, easy later, easy now, hard later. Take your pick. It's one of those two. By facing them, that's the hard now. Easy later, you get to move through them. Okay, another one. Jordan has turned her living room into a sanctuary of escape. From the outside, it might seem cozy, but for Jordan, it's a place to drown the silence left by betrayal. The TV blares on, a constant background noise to keep her company. Food, once a joy, has become a mindless activity, a distraction from the hurt. Occasionally, a glass of wine turns into a bottle, blurring the edges of reality. Work fills the gaps, overloading her mind, so there's no room for the pain that awaits patiently for a quiet moment to whisper bitter truths. Now, if you're numbing, avoiding, distracting, this is something else that's keeping you tragically stuck in stage 3, because we're trying again to outrun these emotions. They want to be faced, they want to be dealt with so that you could move to the next stage. The next one. Taylor has reached a plateau of resignation. Once a vibrant individual full of plans and possibilities, the betrayal she's experienced has dimmed her outlook on life. She's come to believe that perhaps this half-life shrouded in disappointment is as good as it's going to get. Taylor's dreams have been packed away like old photographs, out of sight, as they settle into a routine that lacks color but provides a predictable safety from further heartache. Many of you may be doing this right now. Here's where we put the big wall up. We say, no, I would rather keep everyone at a distance than risk that level of vulnerability in being hurt again. We don't want to risk that hurt. It was too painful. But in doing that, you're keeping yourself from the joy, from the friendship, from the intimacy, from the love that you deserve because of someone else's actions, because you're stuck in stage 3. This is so common. And that resignation, you can see once that resignation is set, then it's like, well, this is as good as it's going to get, so I better get used to it. And here's where we're just living half a life. We're not happy in our work, in our health, in our relationships, and we've settled. And if life is just okay, if you're getting by, if you're killing time, any of these sayings, no, that's a stage 3 place of acceptance. You may have gotten used to that, but it's so much better than that. And it can be so much better than that. It may be so much better, and it probably is better than stage 2, the shock and trauma that you went through. But stage 3, look at it as it was just a holding space, but it doesn't mean it's a holding space forever. It's just a holding space temporarily. Look at this as day 1, that now I know I can't unknow, and I'm going to do whatever I need to do to move to the next stage. Okay, another one. Morgan's days blend into one another, a monochrome montage of going through the motions. The betrayal has left a void, draining the energy once reserved for pursuits of passion and change. Now the thought of taking action, of making any significant change, seems an insurmountable task. Morgan feels adrift in an ocean of lethargy, where even the tides don't bother to change. There's an awareness that this isn't the way to live, but the spark that might ignite the will to alter course has been stifled by a profound exhaustion of spirit. And you may be feeling this too. It's this sense of just, again, it's that resignation, but it's like everything is dulled. It's like you've turned the color down on life, and we just settle into this space, and we just get tired. We're tired. There's the joy is gone. There's no excitement. There's no joy. There's very little happiness. And we get used to this, and then we start thinking, well, isn't this just, this is okay? And it is okay. But if you had any idea what stage 4 and stage 5 felt like, you wouldn't waste another minute in stage 3. Stage 3, again, look at it like a holding pattern. By no means is it where you're supposed to land and stay, even though, here's the thing, it may have been comfortable for a bit of time, maybe even years, maybe even decades. And there are so many people that I come into contact with who then get angry, because then they're like, are you kidding me? I have been in stage 3 for 40 years, or something. And here's the thing, that's okay. It's okay. It stops now. If you didn't know this, maybe you'd be in there for another 10, 20, 30 years. Who knows? If you know now, let today be the day that you start moving out of stage 3 and into stage 4. So as stage 3 is just like any of the other stages, it's so known, it's so predictable what happens in this stage. By no means look at it as, well, this is just all there is, and I better get used to it, and this and that and the other thing. Now, I'm not saying it's easy to move to stage 4, but it also has nothing to do with time. People say, well, how long does it take? It has nothing to do with time. Remember, when I did the study, and I thought, as a researcher, I said, well, the people who were the hardest hit would grow the least because they had the most to overcome. That had nothing to do with it. Nothing. It was the ones who just put their head down and said, I am not picking it up till I'm out the other side. They blew the doors off of the ones who were doing the 3 things. And I want to go over the 3 things we do to stay stuck. The first thing, in the study, there were 3 groups who stayed stuck. Number 1, it was the group that was numbing, avoiding, distracting, right? Deeply, deeply stuck in stage 3, miserable, but were numbing. And maybe they ran to the doctor who put them on a mood stabilizer, an anti-anxiety medication. They were emotionally eating, drinking, whatever. They stayed stuck. They didn't move out of stage 3. The second group, this was the group, they had their story, they were sticking with it. Remember in the beginning, I was talking about those small self benefits. They had their story, and You know people like this, and maybe this is even you. You have told your story is so well rehearsed. You've said it thousands of times in your head and thousands of times out loud. They didn't heal. Here was a third group that didn't heal. This was the group where the betrayer had very little consequences. Now, whether it was out of financial fear, not wanting to break up a family, religious reasons, this was a big one. They did all they could to turn the other cheek, look the other way, try to put it behind them. And I saw two things with this group. Number one, a further deterioration of the relationship. And number two, this group by far was the most physically sick. They had the most symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. And remember, I spoke earlier about when here you're so unhappy, you're so sad, and your heart hurts, you just want to be with that person again, and you keep getting back together again. You keep getting back together when you're in stage 3, and here's where there are very little consequences to the betrayer, right? It was just like a slap on the wrist kind of thing, and no significant consequences, and so no change. So then repeat betrayals, very, very common. And with this, when you keep experiencing repeat betrayals, and then the longer you're going through this, and the more often you go through this, the more convinced you are that it's you. And if you're with someone who is convincing you and trying to gaslight you, saying that it is you, and if you were this, that, and the other thing, none of this would have happened, and you start believing it, which, I mean, that's the definition of craziness right there. That's where you're going to have the most symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. That's where you're going to be so tragically stuck. Now, I want to just really let you know, this is not your fault. You're just, you're doing this out of love. You're doing this out of hope. You're doing this out of commitment, whatever it is. But you're also making yourself tragically sick. Now, for those of you who have children, they are watching you. So, maybe it's the type of thing, they may see mom or dad crash, but they can also see mom or dad rise. And that's when you make that decision. I'm going to move through the stages no matter what. When you do, you will see a version of you that will absolutely blow your mind. Someone that is so strong, so healthy, so whole, so healed, waiting in stages 4 and stage 5. So that's what stage 3 looks like. That's what it feels like. Of course, that's all we do within the PBT Institute is move you through the stages. Everything is numbered. We have classes, daily live classes with our certified coaches. Everything's recorded if you can't catch it live, and everything's numbered. So if you're in stage 3, you do all the stage 3 stuff. We have our programs. We have classes. We have master classes. We have open Q&A with me. We have the most supportive, loving community. We're all in a club we never wanted to be in, but we're all lifting and inspiring. And the whole intention is we're moving you through the 5 stages. So do not stay stuck in stage 3. Stage 3, staying there is a choice and not a good one, not one that's in your best interest. So if we can help you, thepbtinstitute.com, that's all we do all day long. The most amazing coaches ever, most incredible community moving you through the stages. Stage 3 is a trap. It's like quicksand. And it is one of the hardest places to leave. I have people who they come into the PBT Institute and it's like, imagine a trapeze, right? And there's one bar and they are hanging on to stage 3 for dear life. And they even grab hold of the bar of stage 4. But if you notice, you don't go anywhere unless you let go of the bar of stage 3 and moving you to stage 4. So you may have even grabbed hold of that bar to stage 4, but you do not move to stage 4 until you truly let go of everything that stage 3 gave you. You grieve, you mourn the loss, bunch of things you need to do. Of course, we can help you with all of that. So I hope you see now what stage 3 is all about. It is a trap. It's quicksand. It is the most common place that we get stuck. And you can also move to stage 4 and start your transformation. It is completely and totally up to you. So I hope that helps, and I'll see you next time. You need the right tools, support, and the right community to move through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. And we have all that within the PBT Institute. So join us at the PBT, as in post-betrayal transformation, thepbtinstitute.com. There's a version of you who's so confident, healthy, peaceful, and happy on the other end of your healing. And we can't wait to help you get there. We got you. Thanks for listening. And here's to your breakthrough.